3 weeks later, just before Oliver's birthday, Robert McCoy called with the update. I knew what he was going to say before he said it. The name change has been approved, he told me. As of this morning, Oliver Allen Aldridge is now legally Oliver Allen Thornton. Okay, I said. There was a brief pause. I've already filed the documentation with the trust. As of 9 a.m. today, Oliver Thornton has been removed from all Aldridge family trust records. His beneficiary status has been permanently revoked. I stared at the wall as he continued. What about the secondary benefits? I asked. Everything, Robert replied without hesitation. The college scholarship fund, gone. The housing subsidy program, gone. The summer internship placement at Aldridge Development, gone. The study abroad scholarship, gone. The emergency medical fund, gone. His future seat on the board of trustees, gone. Every single benefit tied to Aldridge family membership has been permanently revoked, he said. And this is irreversible. Completely, he paused, then added, Provision 12B is ironclad. Your great-grandfather made sure of that. Even if Oliver were to change his name back later, the trust does not allow reinstatement after voluntary abandonment. I closed my eyes. He made his choice, Robert said quietly, and the trust has recorded that choice permanently. Good, I replied, my voice flat. Robert hesitated. William, I have to tell you, I've been practicing family law for 35 years, and I've never seen anyone actually activate this provision. Most families find other solutions. Most families don't have to watch their children get bought by a step-parent, I said. Fair enough, he replied. The trust administrator will be sending formal notifications to all relevant institutions, Robert continued. They'll begin processing the removals within 48 hours. I thanked him and hung up. It was done. And just like that, on paper at least, Oliver Aldridge ceased to exist. My son had a new name, a new father, a new family, and absolutely no idea what he'd just given up. Oliver turned 12 just a few days after the name change, right in the middle of summer break. Brooke and Jeffrey threw a massive party at the mansion. The backyard had been transformed into a spectacle. A luxury grill buffet with everything from lobster tails and wagyu steaks to carefully arranged salads and desserts that looked like they belonged at a 5-star resort. The pool shimmered in the sunlight, surrounded by lounge furniture, umbrellas, and speakers playing music that was meant to feel relaxed, but unmistakably exclusive. Most of the guests were from the Thornton and Manning sides of the family. There was loud laughter, clinking glasses, and people who clearly belonged, people who knew each other or at least knew each other's status. I was invited, but no one else from my family was, not even Mason and Freddie. I sat alone at a table as far from the pool and the celebration as possible. No one really spoke to me. I was present but already reduced to a formality. Oliver sat at another table between Brooke and Jeffrey. Without his cousins, without Mason, without Freddie, he looked lost. Too old to be a child. Too young to be part of the adults. Trapped in something he hadn't built himself. I watched him. He did everything he could to avoid meeting my eyes. When he finally glanced up for just a moment, he looked away again. Then Jeffrey stood up. He asked for everyone's attention and waited for the noise to fade. With a smile and a voice full of satisfaction, he announced that as of today, Oliver was officially his son. That he had adopted him. That Oliver was now a true Thornton and a full member of their family. The crowd cheered. Glasses were raised. Jeffrey handed Oliver a golden and white college jacket with Thornton stitched boldly across the back. A toast was made in Oliver's honor. Everyone shouted congratulations. In that moment, I finally caught Oliver's eyes. He shook his head slightly. I couldn't tell what he meant by it. Regret? Apology? A silent plea? Then he looked down again. It felt like a punch to the stomach. I stood up and left the party without saying a word to anyone. Before I walked out of the house, I found Oliver's room and placed a gift on his bed. A photo album filled with our best memories, small moments, smiles, Lego builds, baseball games, trips, ordinary days. Proof that what we had shared had been real. I left the mansion with tears in my eyes. No one noticed me leaving. The first sign of something wrong came 2 weeks later. Oliver had been accepted to Aldridge Academy, the prestigious private school founded in 1951 by my great-grandfather, Oliver Wilfred Aldridge. At the time, it had been built with a clear purpose, to educate future leaders with discipline, academic rigor, and a sense of responsibility that extended beyond privilege. Officially, the academy was now independent. Its board was separate. Its funding diversified. But the Aldridge family connection remained woven into its structure. Descendants received automatic admission along with full scholarship coverage funded through the family trust. Not as favoritism, but as legacy. The campus itself reflected that philosophy. Red brick academic buildings set among old oak trees. Small class sizes. Mandatory ethics courses alongside advanced mathematics and sciences. Expectations that went beyond grades. Character mattered. Accountability mattered. Aldridge Academy was known nationally for its academic rigor and its direct pipeline to Ivy League universities. Alumni populated law firms, medical institutions, research labs, and boardrooms across the country. Oliver was meant to start after the summer break, entering 7th grade alongside his cousin Mason and most of his friends from middle school. Freddie was already a student there, thriving in an environment that challenged him and grounded him at the same time. Oliver's acceptance letter had arrived 6 months earlier. I still remembered the look on his face when he opened it, confused at first, then quietly proud. It was one of those moments that felt like a bridge between childhood and something more serious. At the time, it had seemed inevitable. Now, it felt like a warning I hadn't fully understood. Brooke had been thrilled. She bragged openly to her friends about it, about how her son was going to this exclusive academy. She talked about the prestige, the connections, the future it guaranteed. In her telling, it was already a settled fact, another symbol that everything in her life was moving upward. She'd wasted no time preparing. The uniform had already been purchased, neatly pressed and hanging in Oliver's closet at her house. New shoes. School supplies ordered to match the academy's specifications. She spoke about orientation week, about how impressive the campus was, about how lucky Oliver was to be part of something so elite. To her, Aldridge Academy was just another luxury, another line item in the life she believed she'd secured by marrying Jeffrey. What she didn't understand was that none of it belonged to her. Not the admission, not the scholarship, not the legacy that made it possible. She was celebrating a future that had already quietly slipped out of reach. Then came the second letter. I didn't see it myself. Oliver called me instead. His voice sounded uncertain, not scared, not upset. Just confused, like a child sensing something important had shifted without understanding why. "Mom got this weird letter from my school," he said. "Oh yeah?" I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "What about?" "Something about my scholarship," he said. "They said there was a problem with my eligibility." "What kind of problem?" "I don't really know," he said. "Something about my name not being in their system anymore." There was a pause. "Mom called them," he continued, "but they said they couldn't discuss it with her." "Huh," I said quietly. "You're a Thornton now, and you were in the system as Oliver Aldridge." "That's strange." He hesitated before adding, "Jeffrey said he'll handle it. He knows people on the board." I almost smiled. "I'm sure he does," I said. Oliver went quiet on the other end of the line, like he was waiting for reassurance I didn't give. I didn't explain. I didn't correct him. Some lessons don't arrive through lectures. They arrive through letters. But Jeffrey couldn't handle it. Because Jeffrey didn't know about the Aldridge Family Trust Scholarship Program, the one that quietly funded more than 40% of the Academy's operating budget. And he certainly didn't know that removing Oliver's name from the trust automatically revoked his eligibility. The Aldridge Academy had sent Brooke a formal letter. It explained in precise and unemotional language that due to changes in beneficiary status, Oliver's full scholarship had been revoked. He was still welcome to attend, but only at the standard tuition rate, $50,000 per year. Brooke called me furious. "Did you do this?" she demanded the moment I answered. "Do what?" "Oliver's scholarship. They canceled it. They said something about his name not being in the family trust anymore." "He isn't an Aldridge anymore," I said calmly. "The trust is for Aldridge descendants." "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "He's still your son." "Biologically." "Sure," I replied. "But legally he's Oliver Thornton now. Jeffrey's son. The Thornton family can pay for his education." "You're being petty." "No," I said. "I'm following the trust provisions my great-grandfather established 70 years ago. Oliver made a choice. This is the consequence." "He's 12 years old," she shouted. "He doesn't understand legal consequences." I paused before answering. "Then maybe you shouldn't have pushed an 11-year-old boy to make a legal decision." Silence. "He didn't understand," she said again, quieter this time. Then she hung up on me. Jeffrey called an hour later. "We need to discuss this scholarship situation," he said, slipping into what I recognized as his business voice, calm, controlled, used to people yielding. "There's nothing to discuss," I replied. "Oliver isn't a trust beneficiary anymore." "This is absurd," he snapped. He's your biological son. That should count for something. The trust doesn't care about biology, I said evenly. It cares about the name. Your lawyers should have researched that before pushing the adoption. We'll fight this. I almost laughed. Good luck. My great-grandfather's estate attorney spent decades making sure that trust was bulletproof. Every challenge has failed. There's no loophole, no exception, no appeal process. It's done. You're punishing a child for adult decisions, he shot back. No, I said quietly. I'm allowing a child to live with the decision he made. I paused, then added, you wanted to make him a Thornton. Congratulations. He's all yours now. He tried threatening legal action after that. Lawsuits, injunctions, pressure, but his lawyers quickly discovered what I already knew. The trust was untouchable. Private family trusts carry enormous legal protection, and my great-grandfathers have been engineered with particular care, layered jurisdictions, independent trustees, airtight provisions. It wasn't just strong. It was designed to outlive exactly this kind of challenge. Money could buy influence, but it couldn't rewrite a system built to resist it. Oliver had also been accepted into Aldridge Academy's summer enrichment program for the summer of 2026. It was a 6-week intensive design for gifted students, science camps, leadership development, college preparation. The kind of program that quietly shaped futures long before college applications were ever written. For Aldridge family members, it was fully covered by the trust. For non-family students, tuition was $8,000. Brooke had already registered him, assuming his family status would still apply. Then the final letter arrived. Attached was an invoice. $50,000 for Aldridge Academy tuition. $8,000 for the summer enrichment program. $58,000 total. That's insane, Jeffrey said during a phone call with Brooke, one Oliver overheard. It's the Academy's own program. It's supposed to be included with the scholarship. It wasn't. The next day, Brooke called me crying. Please, William, she said. I need help with the money. Jeffrey won't pay for the school or the summer program. He says Oliver isn't his biological son. I don't have the money, and my parents won't pay either. I listened. Then I answered calmly. I'll not pay for a Thornton. She went silent. He could have had all of this if he had stayed in Aldridge, I continued. The school is named after us. Didn't you put 2 and 2 together before the name change? She tried to argue. You told me Jeffrey could give him better opportunities, I said. And now he won't even pay for his education. I hung up. The next thing I heard was that Oliver started at a public middle school after summer break, Riverside Central Middle School. It wasn't a bad school, not by any objective measure. Solid teachers, overcrowded classrooms, a place built to serve hundreds of students, not to shape futures individually. There were no uniforms, no legacy buildings, no small seminar-style classes or mentors tracking long-term potential. No quiet expectation that students would go on to Ivy League universities or leadership positions. Oliver blended in. He took the bus, shared textbooks, ate lunch in a noisy cafeteria with kids from every background imaginable. Some struggling, some thriving, most just getting by. It was a world away from Aldridge Academy. No Mason beside him on the first day. No Freddie waiting in the upper grades. No familiar name on the walls or in the alumni rolls. Just another student, another last name. I imagined him walking through those hallways, still smart, still capable, still the same boy I'd raised, but without the scaffolding that had quietly supported generations before him. Not worse, just different. And for the first time since all of this began, I wondered whether the lesson he was learning had come too early and at a cost far greater than anyone had intended. I found out later that Brooke had tried to do damage control. Panic had set in once the implications became impossible to ignore. She called the trust administrator directly, demanding that Oliver's benefits be reinstated. The administrator, a woman named Sarah Keene, took the call. Sarah had worked for my grandfather for years. She knew the trust inside and out. She listened politely, calmly, professionally, then she explained. Mrs. Thornton, she said, the trust provisions are absolute. When your son voluntarily changed his legal surname, he terminated his beneficiary status. Brooke protested, said it wasn't fair, that this was clearly a punishment. It isn't, Sarah replied. This isn't a personal decision. It's an automatic provision that activates based on a legal name change. But he's still William's biological son, Brooke argued. The trust does not determine beneficiaries by biology alone, Sarah explained. It uses legal surname as the verification method. This prevents disputes, fraud, and complicated genealogy arguments. Brooke tried again. Your son is no longer legally named Aldridge, Sarah continued evenly. Therefore, he is no longer a trust beneficiary. Brooke reportedly said it was insane, that it couldn't possibly be what his great-grandfather intended. This is exactly what Oliver Wilfred Aldridge intended when he established the trust in 1954, Sarah said. He wanted to ensure that only individuals committed to carrying the family name would benefit from the family wealth. She paused, then delivered the sentence Brooke couldn't escape. Your son chose a different name. The trust interprets that as choosing a different family. Brooke asked if there was an appeal process. There is none, Sarah replied. Provision 12b explicitly states that voluntary name changes result in permanent forfeiture with no mechanism for reinstatement. This provision has been upheld in court multiple times over the past 70 years. According to Sarah, Brooke broke down crying during that call. Sarah reported the conversation to Robert, who told me about it during one of our regular check-ins. She really didn't understand what she was doing, Robert said. She knew the Aldridge name meant something. She just thought it was about ego and tradition, not actual legal and financial consequences. He paused, then added, almost thoughtfully, to be fair, most people don't structure family trust this way anymore. Why? I asked. Because most people don't think 3 generations ahead. Over the next few months, Oliver slowly began to realize that something was wrong. He didn't understand the details. He couldn't have. He was only 12, but he could feel it. Doors were closing, quietly, without explanation. Easton Taylor, Philip Montgomery, Tanner Moore, and Ethan Brooks. His best friends from middle school, kids he'd grown up with, kids who were now attending Aldridge Academy, stopped inviting him to birthday parties, weekend trips, sleepovers. Not all at once. Just enough that it became noticeable. Awkward excuses, missed messages, invitations that never came. The hardest part was his cousins. Mason and Freddie stopped responding to his texts. Then they blocked him entirely, on phones, on social media, everywhere. It wasn't cruelty. Their parents had explicitly instructed them not to maintain close contact with Oliver. Not because they didn't love him, not because they were angry, but because associating too closely with non-beneficiaries could complicate their own status. The trust had always been paranoid about one thing above all else: influence. People trying to maneuver their way into benefits through proximity, relationships, emotional leverage. It wasn't enough to simply be related. You had to be recognized. And Oliver no longer was. To a 12-year-old, none of that made sense. All he felt was the sudden absence. Cousins who used to be brothers. Friends who stopped answering. A world that had quietly decided he was no longer part of it. No one sat him down and explained it. The trust never explained anything. It never had to. It simply moved on and left a boy behind to slowly realize that belonging, once lost, doesn't announce its departure. At the end of September, my uncle Gerald died. His death brought the family together in a way few events ever did. Gerald had been a complicated man, but he was still an Aldridge, and his funeral was treated accordingly. Brooke must still have been on one of the extended family mailing lists because she showed up with Oliver. The funeral was held at a large church, and everything was meticulously organized. Seating wasn't casual. It never was. Trustees oversaw it directly. Primary beneficiaries were seated in the front rows, extended family behind them. Spouses and guests toward the back. It wasn't about status. It was about structure. After greeting Gerald's widow and children, the family gathered near the front rows, quietly talking, sharing condolences. That's where I was standing when I saw Brooke and Oliver enter the church. For a brief moment, Oliver spotted me. His face lit up instinctively and he started to walk toward me. He didn't get far. A man with a clipboard stepped in front of them, polite, professional, unemotional. He checked the list, paused, checked again. Then he told Brooke and Oliver that Oliver wasn't listed as close family and would need to be seated in general seating. Brooke protested quietly. The man listened, nodded, and repeated himself. They were redirected toward the back of the church. I saw Mason notice Oliver at the same time. He smiled, relief flashing across his face, and took a step forward. His father caught his eye. One look was enough. Mason stopped and stayed where he was, beside us. Oliver didn't protest. He just followed Brooke down the aisle, his shoulders tense, his eyes fixed straight ahead. Before I could move, before I could say anything, they slipped into a pew at the back. The service began. When it ended, Brooke and Oliver were already gone. They left before I had a chance to speak to him, before I could explain. Before I could say anything at all, Oliver called me a few days later. "Dad," he said quietly, "why doesn't anyone talk to me anymore?" I leaned back in my chair, already knowing what he meant. "What do you mean?" "My cousins. My friends," he said. "They used to invite me to stuff, birthdays, sleepovers. Now, nothing." I chose my words carefully. "Maybe they're just busy." There was a pause. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "Even at Uncle Gerald's funeral, they wouldn't let me sit in the family section." "That must have been confusing," I said. "Mom got really mad," he continued. "She yelled at some guy with a clipboard. He just kept saying I wasn't on the list." I exhaled slowly. These things can be complicated. "Why though?" he asked. "I'm still family." He was 12 now, old enough to notice patterns, old enough to feel loss, still too young to understand the machinery behind it. "Are you still family?" I asked gently. "Of course I am," he said immediately. "But you're a Thornton now," I said. "You changed your name." He hesitated. "Jeffrey said that was just paperwork, that I'd always be related to you, to everyone." "Being related," I said quietly, "and being family aren't always the same thing, buddy." "That doesn't make sense," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. "It will," I replied eventually. He went quiet after that, not angry, not arguing, just thinking. The kind of silence children fall into when they know something important has shifted, but don't yet have the language to explain it. That was the last time I heard from him for months. No calls, no messages, no updates passed along through anyone else. At first, I told myself it was temporary, that he was busy adjusting, that he needed space. Then the days stretched into weeks, and the weeks into months. I checked my phone more often than I should have. Every notification carried a brief surge of hope, followed by the same dull disappointment. I never reached out first. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew silence at that point was being imposed from the other side. What hurt most wasn't the absence of conflict. It was the absence of him. A boy who used to tell me everything now existed only in memory, and in the spaces he used to fill. I still kept his room the way it was. I didn't pack anything away. I didn't change the sheets or clear the desk. His space remained untouched, as if he might walk back in at any moment and need it exactly as he left it. I found myself replaying memories without meaning to. Sitting on the porch together, counting stars until he fell asleep against my shoulder. Teaching him how to swim, how he clung to the edge at first, then finally trusted me enough to let go. The way he laughed the first time he dove underwater without fear. Some evenings, I would walk into his room and just sit there, on the edge of the bed, in the chair by his desk, waiting without knowing what I was waiting for. The house felt incomplete. Not empty exactly, but missing something essential, like a structure with a load-bearing wall quietly removed. I realized then that you don't stop being a father just because your child is gone. You just lose the place where that love is supposed to land. A part of me was missing, and I didn't know how to move forward without it.